Australia's biggest polluters will be forced to reduce emissions by 4.9% each year under new reforms to the Safeguard Mechanism climate change policy. Joining me now live is Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry Chief of Policy and Advocacy, David Alexander. David, appreciate your time this morning. What does this proposal mean for industry?
Thanks, Danica. Yes, well, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry has welcomed the government's announcements of its reforms to the emissions safeguard mechanism. We think it will provide a useful framework for ensuring that we meet our emissions targets in the most effective way possible. So it's really setting a trajectory for emissions reductions year by year over the next number of years through to 2030, through which businesses need to comply. Enabling that to occur will be effectively a carbon trading market where businesses that are doing better than expected can sell their permits, if you like, whereas businesses that need to have extra credits will be able to purchase those. So that structure should provide an effective mechanism for reducing emissions over the coming period.
How confident are you that businesses won't be disadvantaged by this, particularly compared to international competitors, if a business or manufacturer in particular fails to meet its targets?
Yeah, so there is a group of industries that will be more severely impacted. Emissions-intensive, trade-exposed industries. The government recognises that, and it's sought to allow them to have tailor-made solutions and also a fund to allow them to adjust to a new, lower carbon world.
Are you concerned at all about heavy industry choosing to cut output as a way to reduce emissions? If they are allowed to sell on any carbon reduction they achieve beyond that 4.9% target, the companies can choose to get paid by halting production and basically do absolutely nothing. So does this create a problem?
I think that the mechanism will be robust enough to ensure that the targets are met and businesses will be able to carry on. Of course, with anything like this, you need to keep an eye on how it works from when it's established. So the legislation will be introduced, it'll be up and operational, and I think the government will need to keep a close eye on how things are tracking for some of those industries. We'll certainly be keeping a close eye on whether the emissions targets are being introduced, but also how are businesses faring under this new regime.
What sort of an impact do you think that this will have on the economy?
I think there's a broader question here. I mean, Australia is committed to reducing emissions over coming years. There's no question that that will be a challenge. Transitioning from a world of fossil fuel abundance where no one really cared and you could allow free markets to dictate where things were going. We recognise now that there's a pollution problem that comes from that. We're transitioning to an emissions-free or net zero world, and through that transition, it's going to be, I think, quite challenging. So that's not to say that economic growth won't occur over coming years and decades. We absolutely expect that it will. It's just that there might be some costs during the transition to getting there.
David Alexander, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.